Question. Somebody's holding a piece of litter. How many steps do you think they'll take on average before they decide to just throw it on the floor? The answer is just 12. Me and my family went out earlier on for a little walk around Peterborough. Me, my wife Emma and my daughter Eliza. Here we go, look, suitcase. Surely it takes more effort to actually hurl this over here than to put it in your own dustbin. And then in here, look what we've got. Chairs, Hoover, and here, bits and pieces in this land. It's not only just disgusting, it's also unhealthy. We found a bag of dog dirt on the side of the road in Silver Street, and as you can see at the back there, I shouted out and my daughter instantly went towards it. It's horrendous. On Twitter, Amy Price found 50 bags of faeces. 50 bags! Has somebody been collecting them? Keeping them for a rainy day? It's dangerous and horrible. What is wrong with these people? They're no better than the animals they look after. There's mattresses and beds and chairs and all sorts of garbage on the streets. This is Brewster Avenue. Tyres and trays and cases and cans, a few yards from dustbins. When are these cockroaches going to learn that this is their city, that this is their fault, and this is their health? It's got to be learned from an early age. Apparently, around 30 million tonnes of litter are dumped on our streets every year, and the government spends around £1 billion to clean it up. That's money that taxpayers have to stump up for cleaning up the cans, the fish and chip wrappers, the crisp packets, the cigarette butts, and all the rubbish that we see on our streets every day. When I was back working at the Peterborough Telegraph, I used to write stories about fly tipping and rubbish and litter. A guy told me that he saw somebody driving along in a van, literally throwing tyres out the back of the van. There was another guy sitting in the back, literally the doors open, and they were just tossing them out as they were driving along. So what could be done about littering? Well, you could call your local council who could come and clean it up. But really, how many councils these days have the time and the manpower to actually come out and clean up every individual piece of rubbish? Councils do sometimes ask residents to do some quite bizarre sounding things. I picked up on a story in North Wales where the local council has been carrying out monthly bin collections. Obviously the residents aren't too happy about that, but the council's urged them to just stand in their rubbish and try and compact it down so that it's not out on the streets. Apparently ministers have said that we need a whole new cultural change when it comes to dealing with rubbish. We need to change the way we think about things. I just wonder whether we don't actually have communities anymore that care as much about our streets. Do you know the names of your next door neighbour? A lot of people don't. A lot of people don't feel that they're actually part of a community anymore. I do think that there are certain areas of the country where there is a real lack of community, so people don't really care about their surrounding streets. They care about their own house and maybe the very near surrounding area, but they can't be bothered to go out and certainly litter pick. Thankfully there are people who will do that, but I think there's a lot who really don't care now. And one of the reasons that I would say that is if you look back at photographs from the 1950s and 1960s, which you can see on Google, there's no litter on the streets. There's no litter there at all. And of course, those were the times when community spirit, maybe post-war and going off into the 60s, 70s, those are the times when there was a stronger community spirit. I mean, they'll always tell us that, people who lived through those eras. They'll always say, oh, everybody knew everybody and you didn't need to lock your front doors. Maybe people cared a lot more about their surrounding areas, and maybe that's why there wasn't as much rubbish on the streets. maybe areas were a lot more tidy. There wasn't as much graffiti, there wasn't as much garbage just lining the streets. If I'm honest, the 12 paces, I think, was a little bit of a surprise to me, because I can remember once when I was in the centre of the city, I observed two lads. They unwrapped, I think it was like a Subway sandwich, and walked along and just dropped the wrapper on the floor and then continued walking, and literally 3 or 4 paces later they went past a dustbin. You just wonder what sort of houses those two lads were brought up in, even if they are houses, or if they're just, garbage infested cesspits. Really, there are a lot of people who really just don't care about where they live, and that's really sad, because overall Great Britain is a great place, but it's turning into a bit of a giant trash can, and I just wonder in 20, 30 years time what it'll actually look like. I suspect those lads that I saw, well, I've got a good view of what it'll look like, because they'll be actually picking up the rubbish as part of a community service. So at least the one thing that makes me feel a little bit better is that they will actually have to pick up some rubbish at some point.